the first half, we're at a Super Bowl party at our friend Colin's dorm in southern New Hampshire. And he is a lightweight who thinks he's not a lightweight in this party. So he decides to just take shots and shots and shots of all things Fireball. I don't know why people drink Fireball. It's literally antifreeze. But anyways, so he's
Thought we
pounding
moved on from that. Once you're in high school, like in college, you move up to like Smirnoff or
anything else. Fireball's disgusting. I judge people who drink that. Anyways, so he gets very, very drunk. And before the first quarter is over, Colin is puking. There's a nightmare. He's like falling asleep and puking while he's sleeping. It's just a nightmare. The whole first half are watching the game, and the Patriots are getting fucking murdered. My friend Colin is getting killed by the devil's alcohol itself, the devil's water in Fireball. And everything that could have gone wrong in the first half went wrong. The Patriots are losing 28-3. Colin is dead. All of us are just in a frenzy. We're calling people. We're trying to avoid Colin's girlfriend from coming to the Super Bowl party because she sucks. And she ends up calling us and freaking out because Colin's dying. So she ends up coming over, and she's the stereotypical Super Bowl watcher who doesn't watch football. So that was terrible. So then the second half, my friends come in who are a little bit more hooligan, and we're watching the Patriots get crushed. So we're like, you know what? We're going to take a quick smoke break. We're going to go. We'll come back. We should only be gone like 10, 15 minutes. We'll be fine. So we end up getting a call from my friend Aiden like midway through the third quarter because he's like, wait a minute. They just scored. It's only a 2-score game now. You should come back. Like, we don't know. Maybe they come back. I'm like, no way. So then they score again. We race back up to the dorm and watch the rest of the game. We witnessed the touchdown to go to overtime. And then that very first like toss to James White for the score, we have probably 15 people who are all Patriots fans who just witnessed the greatest comeback in NFL history. All of us just jumping up and down, bouncing. We take a shot of actual alcohol. I don't remember what it was. I think it was like Tito's or something, but everyone just celebrates. And it's like the stereotypical, you want to have like the best like Super Bowl moment. It was that Super Bowl for so many reasons. First, because Colin died. And then secondly, watching the comeback live with all of your friends drunk and then witnessing it. That was the best Super Bowl moment for me.
yeah. Yeah, definitely have to agree. I was in a room like with a lot of other people as a family friend's house. Everyone was kind of just down the entire first half, and then once they started coming back, and then you have the Edelman catch. There's so many great moments in that game, but everyone was going crazy. That's probably the most ecstatic game. That's probably the greatest Super Bowl. That's easily the greatest Super Bowl comeback of all time. And that's kind of where Tom Brady really cemented himself as the GOAT, because he won that Super Bowl, and then his last one he won was probably the most boring Super Bowl of all time in the modern era, at least, versus the Rams, where he beat the Rams like 10-3 in that game. So that is kind of the game that cemented him as the GOAT, because before that, you have to remember he was tied with Joe Montana with 4 Super Bowls. So there was still an argument there. And then not only did he break the tie with Joe Montana, but he did it with having the greatest comeback in the history of the NFL, which is 28-3. And then it was an overtime game to boot in Matt Ryan's MVP year. So they knock off the MVP as well. So like you have all of that going for it. It's like, it's not just that it was a 28-3, but I feel like people also forget that is what broke the tie with a lot of other great quarterbacks, where Tom Brady has 5, which I think, is that the most Super Bowls any quarterback has ever won? Because like Bradshaw has 4,
Yeah,
Joe
it
Montana
was.
has 4, and then he does it in this incredible comeback. He ends up winning 6 with the Patriots and then goes on to win 7 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But that was the one that kind of solidified him as the GOAT.
Well, not only that, like, yes, that is true that it did make him the GOAT, especially after that game. But also, like, following that, like, that same season, that was the Deflategate saga, where he was suspended. He had to serve out those 4 games. Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo were there. He comes back and he arguably almost wins the MVP that year because I think he was like 28 touchdowns to 2 interceptions in that run, and then goes all the way to the Super Bowl and has that insane comeback. And that's what ultimately put him in that conversation. And then when he beat the Rams in the Super Bowl and had 6, that's when he entered like Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Muhammad Ali, like greatest athletes of all time for him. And it became the quintessential, unarguable GOAT. And then to do it again, beat in the Bucks Super Bowl, he became the GOAT of all sports at that point.
Yeah. So that is also, I feel like that's something that people forget. Where like, yeah, sure, it is a great comeback, but I feel like there's so much more to that Super Bowl than just it being 23.
Yeah, it's the Deflategate. It's the GOAT conversation. It's Edelman's catch. It's everything else that plays into it. But that Super Bowl, that's the greatest Super Bowl of all time. It has to be, for all the reasons we mentioned.
Yeah, you have Julio Jones, Matt Ryan in that Super Bowl head to head. Definitely agree there. So we've covered every head coaching hire. If you want to check that out, that is about the first 40 minutes of this episode. Then we went through our Super Bowl preview. You have the Patriots, I have the Seahawks in this one, kind of just to break the fall there. And then we kind of went over Super Bowl things that annoy us. Went over some key core memories as far as the Super Bowl as well. A lot of great stuff in there, but what have you been watching or listening to this week?
Yeah, so I decided to rewatch Gone Baby Gone, which was the first director performance of Ben Affleck. And it's Casey Affleck. Essentially, he's trying to find a missing child. It's set in Dorchester, Massachusetts. And essentially, yeah, it's Casey Affleck. He's got Morgan Freeman as the sheriff. Ed Harris is in there. Amy Ryan plays there as well. But it's the directorial debut of Ben Affleck. And honestly, Ben Affleck is a very underrated director, in my opinion. He's made a lot of good movies. He doesn't have a huge catalog, but the movies he has made has been very good. The Town, Argo, Gone Girl. There's a few other ones to shout out, but first one, it's based off of a Dennis Lehane book. I remember watching it as a kid and really liking it. And this one, it did get some buzz. It won some awards. I don't know if it won an Oscar, but I think they got some nominations. But my only grievance with this movie, and maybe it's because I'm from the area, but the Boston accents in this are very forced. You can tell the people who are directing in this movie who are from New England and who are not. Casey Affleck is from Manchester by the Sea area, so he has the accent and he's from the Boston area. But like they have
Ed
like
Harris.
Michelle Monaghan, not a Boston regular, very thick, bad Boston accent. Morgan Freeman doesn't really try to be, which is good, but all the other accents outside of Casey Affleck are just what I would consider outside of New England Boston accents, which are maybe the cringiest accents you can ask for. That is the only movie. That's the only thing I can really slight on this movie. Is just the Boston accent kind of takes me out of it at certain points because it's such a bad accent that people are faking. So that's probably my only grievance. But otherwise, great movie. Definitely recommend. And especially if you're a Ben Affleck fan, I would suggest it as well.
Yeah, no, I like Ben Affleck as a director a lot. I've seen this movie twice, and both times I watched it, I thought this was a really good movie, especially for a directorial debut. This movie was definitely really solid. I kind of am a little bit foggy on the plot, but I remember both times watching it. I really liked it a lot. But yeah, the Boston accent is tricky because it's very distinct and memorable, but I feel like it's one of the hardest accents to pull off, where like British, French, like that's pretty easy. Midwestern, hey, how are ya? Like that's pretty good. Where Boston, I feel like that's one of the accents that kind of gets cartoonish, and then also people trying to do southern accents sometimes they just try and make them sound too stupid at the end of the day. But like Boston is a very specific type of accent where it sounds angry, but it's not necessarily angry, where like a lot of people in Boston, they just like sound aggressive. So sometimes it's tough to really get that tone, where like New York is, I feel like, a little bit more subtle.
Yeah, I would agree. Also, like when people think of Boston accents, they think of like Goodwill Hunting and Ted, and then probably movies like this. Like those are the things they draw from. The problem is like Boston accents, like unless if you're like within a 30-mile radius of Boston, the Boston accent doesn't actually exist. And that's the thing that people outside of New England don't understand is like the Boston accent is kind of an illusion to some extent because it's really like the city of Boston and like the surrounding 15 cities probably around like a certain radius. And then everybody outside of that doesn't like we're from New Hampshire. We don't have thick Boston accents because
Yeah.
it's because we don't have it. It just like people just don't, you either have it or you don't. And when people talk in a Boston accent, you can tell whether or not they're from the area because I just don't I don't know how to explain it. Just authenticity wise, people are overdoing the ahs. People are talking about dunk like it's cartoonish. Like what you said, like it's just cartoonish. It just comes off weird and it takes me out of this particular movie in certain stakes.
Yeah, and that too with it being like a really good movie, but like also the thing with Boston, people expect this like very abrasive, aggressive kind of stereotypical racist city, but like at the end of the day it's a college city and it's very quickly becoming most of the cities like Chinatown at this point as well. So it's like the Boston accent is kind of a dying breed at this point too.
Yeah, agreed. And I think a lot of people, even like outside of that little region I talked about, want to have the Boston accent really bad, but they just don't. So then they try to have the accent. And if you're like within reach, like I could probably have a Boston accent if I tried successfully, but I was like an hour from Boston. But like the further out you go, the worse the accent gets and the more forced it becomes and the more cartoonish it becomes.
Yeah, which is interesting because I wouldn't like northern accent is kind of just talking fast to a certain point where you go across the Midwest. In the Midwest, like everyone has that, oh hey, and then south you have that southern drawl where you can go across entire regions and pick it up where like the northeast, I feel like people talk about Boston, but I feel like the north, just like both of us working in call centers at various points, like the New York one, I feel like is the one that's a lot more prevalent like across the entire state.
Yes, I would agree with that. Especially like if you're within pretty much like 50 miles of New York City, you're going to hear it. And it's going to be thick and they're going to be rude and they're going to be assholes. Then it even stretches into New Jersey. The New Jersey people have the accent. Philly has somewhat of an accent. Like, I feel like just the East Coast, as you go down, there's slightly different dialects, but for the most part, there's just a certain, it's just like basically a cousin of the Boston accent.
Yeah. The New York one though, it's like, oh hey sir, how are you doing today? Hey, it is ma'am. It's
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah. New York accents are just aggressive. It's the only way I could describe it. But as far as the movie, I recommend it. I looked at his catalog. He's only directed 6 movies, but he has Gone Baby Gone, which is a good movie I'd recommend. The Town, Argo,
Great movie.
Live by Night I haven't seen, but I've heard good things.
Is that
Air.
that gang movie?
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but
I
I heard it's
watched that
good.
one. That one's pretty good. It's definitely a weaker Ben Affleck movie, but I watched it in theater and it's like mildly entertaining if you're into mob stuff.
Yeah.